Hello, welcome, and good evening. You're watching HW News English. I am Shubham Chohan, and welcome, in fact, to this 9 p.m. live show. Now, just a heads up, like I've been doing for the last couple of days in the editorial, our managing editor Sujit Nair is on a break for a week, and I will be filling in for him rather in editorial and in the 9 p.m. live show. So, with that out of the way, let's get to the subject at hand here. Now, one thing that's sort of been there's been constant chatter about as far as the opposition and particularly the Congress party has been the leader of opposition and the fact that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra is making her electoral debut. So what do these two moves really mean for the grand old party? And of course, as we head into the new parliament, which is almost a few days away from now, what is the India Alliance's strategy as we head into the new parliament? Because mind you, the numbers are different in the parliament right now. So how will that play out? So to help us answer those questions, we have with us, in fact, Sanjay Jha, political analyst and author. You've already seen him many times on the show. So let's get started and try and find answers to these questions from Mr. Jha himself. Mr. Jha, good evening. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with me. I know we're running very cut to cut, so let's cut straight to the chase. First, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra making her electoral debut from Wayanad. Uh, of course, the fact that she will take the plunge at one point or the other was really not a surprise. But are you surprised with the seat? Do you think it should have been Raebareli instead of Wayanad, or just how do you look at this in general, Mr. Jha?
Shubham, good evening. I do feel that my friend Sujit needed a break after all the hectic, hard work he's done over the pretty grueling summer. But yeah, I think, whatever is happening in terms of the Congress's strategy seems to be on the right track. Rahul Gandhi definitely could not have surrendered Raebareli after winning it, especially because of Amethi and what happened in the last election. Otherwise, he would have been conspicuous for being completely, absent from Uttar Pradesh for 10 years, which in Indian politics you really can't afford to do so. Especially given the fact that, at the end of the day, uh, that part of Raebareli Amethi remains a very strong Gandhi family bastion. As far as Wayanad is concerned, I definitely feel that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has to make a political debut sooner rather than later, and Wayanad has been instrumental in keeping Rahul Gandhi mainstream after the rather stunning debacle in Amethi that happened the last time. So end of day, not an easy choice. It's a predicament for any leader to win from two places by large margins and have to give up one. But if you look at the Priyanka factor, she has been in the back end for a long time, and I think it was necessary, for her to make a very strong statement of her future, political intent by standing for a Lok Sabha ticket. And the advantage that the Congress has is that they will actually be able to demonstrate that, listen, we are the fulcrum of the Congress party, and the Gandhi family is straddling both ends of India, the northern part of India and the southern part of India, which is basically the whole story of the idea of India, which is an inclusive country where there are no distinctions and demarcations, and people live together, work together, irrespective of caste, regional, or kind of religious issues. So I would say it's tactically a very smart move, and it can be almost like a fait accompli. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra should win from Wayanad with a big margin.
Right. Mr. Jha, what does this do? Of course, imagining or taking into the consideration the fact that if Priyanka Gandhi wins the bypoll in Wayanad and she indeed enters the Lok Sabha, what will this scenario do to the BJP? On one hand, in the Lok Sabha, you will have the siblings, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, and in the Rajya Sabha, you will have Sonia Gandhi. So the entire Gandhi family in the parliament, will it make the BJP nervous? or
It,
and
it
what will
should.
it do as well?
Yeah, no, it should. Yeah, because they have ridiculed the Gandhi family, very with a lot of vehemence and, uh, in fact, I would add a lot of venom. The targeting of Rahul Gandhi, trying to make him out to be, part of that populification project, was successful for a long time. And as you can see that, if you go by the CSDS poll, that tells you that in Uttar Pradesh, Rahul Gandhi was more of a preferred prime ministerial candidate than even Prime Minister Mr. Modi. So I think things change in politics. Priyanka, as I think everybody is already aware, if people have followed her during the campaign, is an excellent communicator. I think Rahul has clearly emerged. So I think for the Gandhi family to be there in parliament puts them, frankly, in a public spotlight, which is going to be a challenge. Not easy, because everything a Rahul or a Priyanka or Mrs. Gandhi say will get amplification. But most importantly, I think it will give the Congress party, which is hugely dependent upon these political brands, the kind of, shall we say, energy that they needed. I mean, there are very good parliamentarians there, like, for example, Dr. Tharoor, who's a very dear friend of mine, or Manish Tiwari. Uh, there are people who are good speakers, who can do a wonderful job. But the fact that the Gandhi family will be present in parliament actually is, frankly, for the India alliance as a whole, not just for the Congress party, a head up, a head start as well, because you are able to actually see them perform, not just in terms of making speeches from these, bully pulpits, as we call them, but actually on matters of legislative importance. So let's hope that they do well, because I think India needs a very robust opposition in parliament.
Mr. Jha, do you anticipate that somewhere down the line, if Priyanka Gandhi does enter the Lok Sabha, somewhere down the line there will be, a leadership question that people will ask, that who's the bigger Congress leader? Is it Rahul Gandhi? Is it Priyanka Gandhi Vadra? And with the siblings going, one would assume they would go all guns blazing at the government, trying to corner them on every issue. Do you think for the Congress party in particular, this would, going forward, become a bigger leadership question as to who our leader is? Because till now you had, of course, people saying Rahul Gandhi is our leader. He was there in the Lok Sabha. Of course, like you mentioned, Wayanad was the seat that sort of ensured that he entered the Lok Sabha in the first place after the Amethi defeat. So do you see that factor coming into play going forward?
Well, I can tell you that, one of the best things about, media speculation is that it's very entertaining, and the Gandhis are ideal fodder for that kind of consumption. So this question would happen willy nilly. When you got siblings from a very well-known Indian political family in parliament together, and they have been very close to each other, which is pretty obvious. Uh, you know, there are going to be a lot of people who will try and create a rift between them. The BJP, if you look at the BJP's tweets, they're quite hilarious, but they always talk about some kind of a discord between them, which is frankly quite laughable. I think they are very close to each other, and they do realize that the fight to stop a very authoritarian or a sectarian government is far from over. I agree that the India alliance has done well, but one is not in government, right? And so I do think there are challenges ahead. So this is a distraction. Knowing Priyanka and Rahul Gandhi, I think they will put their heads together and fight it out, and not worry about all the cacophony and the chaos around them.
Right. Let's now come to Rahul Gandhi. And before I get to the leader of opposition question, I had a question before that. What have the results of the 2024 Lok Sabha elections done to brand Rahul? Like you said, he's been ridiculed in the past, in the last 10 years, especially as puppification, as you put it,
Yeah.
quite interestingly.
Mhm.
What does the results, there were almost 100 MPs, 99 is what the Congress is at. What does this do to Rahul Gandhi, brand Rahul, uh, post the election results?
Shubham, I think the Congress is now probably at 102 after a few, I think, independent MPs have joined them. But that's not so material, really. Rahul's brand is clearly resurrected, no doubt about that. I mean, here is a man who was being made into a laughing stock by the BJP. And, in a world of fake news, ordinary people were getting vulnerable to buying into that story. I think Rahul has always been a serious politician. And obviously, he sometimes, kind of, doesn't care for the normal politically correct statements to make, which have made them controversial, but that's for another day to debate. But at core, quintessentially, he's been a serious politician. He's raised issues that are relevant for a national debate. He's not talked about a bhais and a Mangal Sutra and all that kind of very pathetic jazz. So I rate him far above the kind of puerile conversations that he was being sucked into. Uh, I think it's for him really to now kind of build onto this and take it to another level. I like the fact that immediately after the elections, he's been all batting on the front foot. There's no complacency. You can't afford to be in politics. In politics, you got to make every day count. And I'm happy, that he's holding press conferences already, whether it's on the stock market scam or the whole NET issue. I mean, this is how you got to play politics, really. And he's been challenging Mr. Modi's rather outrageous and obtuse statements of the past, and kind of linking it to the current problems, which is the way politics needs to be fought. And I do feel that Rahul Gandhi, the Congress, and the India Alliance need to see themselves as a shadow government. You got to get involved with not just the rhetoric and the sound bites, but follow the government's performance on policy and provide criticism or constructive feedback or provide an alternative. So I think exciting times. But the short answer to your question would be that Rahul Gandhi is definitely back. I think he's back with a bang. And anybody who now tries to probably kind of still attack him because it's a convenient low hanging fruit, because if you say anything about Rahul, it'll make a national headline, I think it'll boomerang against the BJP.
Let's come to the big question then, Mr. Jha. Should Rahul Gandhi take up the post of the leader of opposition? We've been reading reports constantly that many leaders in the Congress are really pushing him to take that post. But some reports say that he's not really keen on taking that post. In your opinion, do you think Rahul Gandhi should take up the post of the leader of opposition in the 18th Lok Sabha?
I mean, technically, I would say yes. Practically, not so sure. Obviously, a leader of the opposition is seen as a alternative prime minister in waiting. That's a normal. If you look at the Westminster model, that's how it's normally seen as. But however, I mean, that's a call that he needs to take. He's got some difficult decisions he's had to take of late. Wayanad or Raebareli, and now this one. Uh, See, the challenge as a leader of opposition is that you got to be in parliament. You got to be discussing issues relentlessly. You got to be kind of constantly, frankly speaking, be on top of legislative agendas. You got to mobilize the entire, opposition to kind of be an extremely challenging entity out there. Not easy, given the fact that the speakers have been extremely partisan in the last 10 years. So it's a job where you are constantly on television, and there is going to be a lot of exposure. Now, the exposure helps you if you are able to actually be on the job and dedicate yourself to that function. And I think to that extent, his visibility will be a huge plus for him. One of the things that a lot of people haven't realized, Shubham, is that because he did the Bharat Joro Yatra and the Bharat Joro Nyaya Yatra, it was literally like running an election campaign over 6 7 months, and that gave him the confidence. Right, what happens is, if you're in the public eye, you don't have the luxury of a margin of error. Like, for example, you and I are talking on this show right now, right? You don't have the freedom to talk any subpar, some kind of crap that will, embarrass you and Sujit and HW English. I don't have the freedom either to indulge in some kind of a, very casual and, informal remark that hasn't been given enough consideration. So if you live in politics under the public eye, you're like living in a goldfish bowl. You're under constant 24 into 7 scrutiny. If you're a leader of opposition, even more so, because everything you say there is like documented in text, and it becomes part of the historical record. So it's for Rahul to really see whether he can dedicate that time to the job. I'm taking a little longer to answer your question because this is an important question. Alternatively, there are many people in the Congress who obviously won't tell you that on the camera, who will want him to be more free to do more political work. The Congress has a tough task ahead. It has to really rebuild itself in so many states: Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. You have got a sliver of a hope, but you can't say that I got 6 seats and my job is done. You got to work with Samajwadi Party to win the next assembly election. Odisha, West Bengal, where the Congress is virtually absent now. There is so much of work to do for the Congress party. Is Rahul Gandhi the man who's become very popular now amongst the common public, including the Congress workers? Does he need to go and spend more time there? Now, these are fundamental questions that the Congress party is in best position to answer. If you were to put me in the dock and say, what would you recommend to him? I would say that let the leader of opposition be in the hands of somebody like Sashi Tharoor, extremely savvy diplomat, brilliant communicator, uh, very comfortable with the cameras and the media, probably the best in the country, if you ask me, by far. I don't think any MP in India's parliament compares with Sashi in terms of intellectual, uh, verbal, and communication skills, and his experience of parliament and diplomacy and bureaucracy. So he's the ideal man for the Congress to be the leader of the opposition, giving Rahul the freedom or the bandwidth to really work on party related issues that have a public connect. To me, that will be a more politically prudent call to take.
Right, interesting there. Even just for our audience, there were reports, like I said, there were reports of a lot of names doing the rounds. Manish Tiwari being one of them, Gaurav Gogoi, in fact, being one of them. Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Jha,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Can I just interject for a while? I would
definitely,
like to add
definitely.
even Manish's name to it. Manish, again, is a veteran. Again, these are guys who are, Manish is bilingual, excellent Hindi. His Hindi is like A plus level. Somebody who understands foreign policy, national security. And these are the kind of people who you need at the real parliamentary debate level. I would not worry about pushing Rahul into it. Rahul speaks very often from the heart, and it doesn't mean that he's tactless, but he kind of flows with his feelings. And sometimes in Parliament, that can be misconstrued, and very often the opposition, in this case the BJP, which is the ruling party, can try and take advantage of it. I'm not saying that you don't be yourself, but I think you have to focus on what you can do best. In politics, one of the thumb rules of success is don't try and be everything. Do what you can do best and stick to it.
Right. So you think Rahul, by not taking up the leader of opposition post, would be relatively free and dedicate more time to the organization? Do you think that would be a more politically prudent, like you put it, for Rahul
Yeah,
Gandhi
I,
that way,
I
and
mean,
let somebody else take up? Because last time as well, in 2019, it was Mr. Adhiranjan Chaudhary who took up the LOP post, and Mr. Gandhi was there. He made speeches that really, made headlines. So you think that would be more prudent, that put somebody else, of course, from the Congress party, take somebody more experienced, more articulate, somebody who has that experience of parliamentarian. Of course, even Rahul Gandhi has that. But you think Rahul Gandhi would be more fit to looking at the organization compared to the parliament? Have I understood that point correctly?
yeah, you have. I want to tell you that if Rahul Gandhi were to ask my advice, I would tell him to not to become the leader of the opposition. I have given you both the pros and cons of the job, right? But I do believe that Rahul Gandhi should focus on political activities, taking on the government in public spaces outside of Parliament, which has its own, decorum and protocol and restrictions. That being out of it gives you a greater degree of latitude to shall we say, indulge in a more aggressive and a more organized kind of an attack. And you don't have a limitation of time and so on and so forth. Plus, you're able to gauge public opinion more quickly when you are with people. So I would say no. I would say he should not be the leader of opposition, although that's always an alternative. And instead, focus on giving it to somebody like Sashi or Manish will be a much smarter job. Yeah. I also want to add that Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, with due respects to him, wasn't the right candidate for being the voice of the Congress party in Lok Sabha. Especially when you have people like Sashi and Manish, it made absolutely no sense to have Adhir in the job. These are mistakes you can't afford to make in politics.
Right. How much, Mr. Jha, how much does temperament play a role in being the leader of opposition? Because as the leader of the opposition, you're also working with the government, right? You're on panels, certain panels where you pick, say, certain people in the top jobs, like the election commissioner now. How much of that does temperament play a role? Like you said, Mr. Tharoor, Mr. Tiwari, these articulate speakers, very well experienced parliamentarians who know how the job is done. So how much does temperament play a role, and does Rahul Gandhi uh, have that to ensure that you work with the government at the same time ensuring that you corner them. And with the numbers that the India Alliance has, in fact, I just said it in an editorial yesterday, the opposition voice has become bigger and bolder now after the
Hmm.
election results. So, how much does temperament play a role for sort of being a leader of opposition?
It does, of course, it does. I don't think we should be discussing Rahul's personal credentials for the job. I think he makes the cut by far. He can be a very good leader of opposition, but it requires a very different allocation of time for him to do that job splendidly. I believe in politics, if you're doing anything, you've got to be A plus. If you're not A plus, if you think you're going to be A minus, don't do it. If you think you're going to be constrained for time, or you'll have you're not kind of enthused about it enough, just don't do it. Simple. It's a straightforward cut there. I also feel that for the Congress party, and especially for Rahul, this government will, looking at the way they have gone about the first couple of weeks, you're already seeing, right, that there are major governance failures. NEET, the UGC NET, you've had the stock market scam, which I think needs to be investigated. There are many multiple challenges that the government needs to be put on the mat on. And I think Rahul can do that uh, better through the press conferences that he's doing, and by being amongst people, work with the people. That's what I think a politician really needs to do. And I think let's not be too carried away. I like to be a little grounded here. Mr. Modi, whatever 3.0 or NDA 3.0, he's still prime minister. I mean, the NDA alliance still has an absolute majority. I have no idea. You can't predict as to how a wounded lion will react. They could become even more repressive. I look at the way the ED has suddenly rushed to, stop Arvind Kejriwal's release, a manifestation of the kind of autocratic culture this government has. There are many things to worry about yet. And I feel that the battle is far from won. I think there has been significant progress, undoubtedly. No, there is no debate on that. But this is still an uphill climb. And I think this has to be battled both in parliament and politically and electorally, and in the public spaces. So Rahul has still a job unfinished to complete. The question that he has to ask himself, and I used to advise him a long time ago on these issues when we started out together in around 2004. But I would tell him even today, focus on what you love to do. Don't ignore the passion that you feel, and for the public contact. If you look at Rahul over the last couple of years, especially since the Bharat Joro Yatra, he comes into his own when he's with people. He's especially kind of, his mojo is so apparent when he's with the common people of India. He's so, shall we say, comfortable in his own skin when he's actually with the disempowered and the underprivileged and the minorities. And that is the kind of leader India needs anyway, given the fact that Mr. Modi prefers to believe that, there are certain big crony capitalists who are the only panacea for India's multiple problems.
Right. Let's then broaden the discussion, Mr. Jha, and even for our audience, if you have any questions for Mr. Jha, do put them. We'll try and fit that in as well. Let's broaden the discussion now and let's look at the India Alliance. 234,
Uh-huh.
235, if I'm not wrong, is where they stand. A huge jump from last time. Of course, not in a position to form the government at the moment. How critical is the opposition's role going forward in this new parliament? What do you think will change from last time uh, to now in terms of the opposition sort of cornering? You already mentioned some of these issues that are out, that has been out since post the election results, and the opposition has a real chance to pin the government on these issues. So, how critical will be the role of the opposition, and how do you see it playing out going forward?
Well, let's try and use a T20 cricket analogy, right? If you have to chase 50 runs to win, it's a cakewalk. You got to chase 200 is tougher. So, right? So, the India Alliance is now a big chase. Not easy for Mr. Modi to bludgeon and bulldoze the opposition anymore, because they have a voice. There are more people. And they, by the way, let's try and understand this very clearly. Every member of parliament is representing the voice of his people. Mr. Modi or the BJP, if you look at them over the last 10 years, they're absolutely dictatorial. 146 MPs suspended is unheard of, right? Chief ministers being arrested, laws being passed. I mean, no discussion. Frankly, it was a monumental farce. Let's bite the bullet here. What we have seen is not democracy. We have seen some kind of a theatrical farce in the name of constitutional liberties. So here is the bottom line, that the opposition has the numbers. Now they need to make it count. You can't be lazy though. You got the numbers doesn't mean that, you see, tomorrow they'll change the narrative to say, oh, they got the numbers, they're obstructing us from working. That's how the BJP is going to work. They will tell the people, you know what, Mr. Modi will probably be thinking even today as I'm talking, what can I do to dissolve this parliament quickly, and then go and tell people that, these guys don't let me work. You gave me 240, now give me 270 minimum, and I'm back. This time he won't say 400 par and all that exaggerated gaslighting that he did earlier. So he'll say, give me 272. And they control and influence a large part of big media. So that will help them propagate that message. So the opposition has to be very smart. Obstruct on anything that is anti people. Do question the government relentlessly on policy. Make sure the Prime Minister is in Parliament as tradition demands, responding to questions being asked. Shubham, I'll give you an example. On Manipur, the Prime Minister did not attend the debates. He came on the last day to give his rejoinder, which must have been a prepared text that he rehearsed on a teleprompter. I think it mocked democracy. Look at Manipur even today. I mean, I have a feeling that what you've seen over the last 10 years is some kind of it's a surreal experience, like watching a soap opera on steroids. Indian democracy, both in parliament and outside, has made itself into a laughing stock. And I think now the opposition has a chance to go and rebalance that, shall we say, skewed strength of Indian democracy. We need to reclaim that back. And therefore, I would say that the work has just started. The first big success has been that they got the numbers. The Congress has done better, so has everybody else. Now you have to make that count in such a way that you are actually able to nail this government, put it down on the mat, and tell the people that we are your watch guards, that we are going to safeguard your interest. Which makes me add one point, that how long will this government last? You don't know. It can collapse because JDU and TDP have inherently a very, kind of a patchy and a very dodgy relationship with the BJP, and there will be pressures on the BJP to keep them going because their agenda is something entirely different. So we'll have to wait and see. Does the India Alliance have a chance to form the government if this government collapses? Absolutely.
Right. I'll come back to that last bit that you talked about the allies, the BJP's allies putting support, and if the government will last for 5 years. One more point on the opposition. One thing we saw, of course, the monumental suspensions you talked about previously, how opposition MPs were just suspended left, right, and center, and then you had critical bills, critical laws like the three new
Yeah.
criminal laws that you'll have regarding the appointment of the election commission, all almost being bulldozed in a way. Voice vote, we have the numbers, we'll do that. But the other aspect has been the walkouts that the opposition has been staging. That okay, if I'm not wrong, they did it during the prime minister's speech on the no confidence motion. They said he's
On
not talking
Manipur,
about
yeah.
Manipur. We'll walk out.
Yeah.
In the overall context of just a fully functioning parliament,
Uh-huh.
aren't walkouts counterproductive? Because then you'll just have chaos, barely any discussion. You will have one section of public representatives talking, the other just not being there. So while one talks about ensuring that the house is in order, everything is in place, there is enough debate and discussion, where is the role of walkouts, and shouldn't that be something that should be uh, uh, discouraged? Because in a way, if I remember correctly, Mr. Jaitley, it was who said that obstruction, when the BJP was in opposition, they said, obstruction, is something that that's all part of the game. But in the long run, do you think that that's not right? Because you're losing out on precious time, and perhaps even representatives who had legitimate and valid points to make on key issues.
Well, Shubham, Arun Jaitley famously said that parliamentary obstruction is a very good political strategy. That's the BJP's mindset, by the way. But here is the point, right? The opposition walks out. Why? Because they're not being heard. That's their, token way of demonstrating to the people of India that if I'm not being given any respect, if we are being made irrelevant by the speaker, what are we sitting there for? Are we going to be there as just kind of statues or what? I mean, think about it, right? In Parliament, the cameras don't even look at the opposition leaders. They're looking at the speaker or the members of the Treasury bench. I mean, there are blackouts. I mean, you have had situations where, it's pretty obvious that it's been very prejudiced and biased. And the opposition cannot afford to be, treated with that kind of contemptuous indifference, which is why opposition walked out. I think it's a shame on the government and not on the opposition. If the party, which is, if the opposition doesn't have the numbers, where is the grace from the party in power? Why was Mr. Modi's government so scared of having a debate? That is the seminal truth. So I don't agree with that walkout argument. However, let me add that yes, as a citizen of this country, as somebody who is in politics, I'm against principally walking out. But practically they are being forced to do so. On Manipur, frankly, Mr. Modi made it into such a trivial issue. He barely spoke on it for a couple of minutes. And look what happened in Manipur. The BJP lost both the Lok Sabha seats to the Congress. And Manipur still has, people, over 200 people dead from the last reports I read, over 50,000 homeless, and the Prime Minister still hasn't gone there, by the way. Don't blame the opposition. Don't blame the Congress here at all. I think the government has failed. It's been disastrous. Frankly, I believe Mr. Modi's government has been disastrous. And let me add, the fact that the BJP got 240 seats, they should be thrilled with that. Because after electoral bonds and, the corruption there, the criminality, the crony capitalism, the lack of jobs, food inflation, the death of democracy and the threat to constitution, they got 240 seats. BJP is very lucky, in my opinion. I think they deserve less than 200 for sure. But anyway, let's respect the verdict of the people. But I want to add a point here that, before we wrap up, because I have to leave in another 5 minutes, so we'll take one more question or two, whatever you can squeeze in. I do feel that, the truth is, Shubham, that we are still battling to save the idea of India. All your viewers, I need to tell them very categorically, don't get complacent and become casual or very chilled out and say now, the ED can still go after people they want to. They can still do the washing machine story. They can still put people in jail if they want to. Just kind of feel that you have no business to question the government and be critical of Mr. Modi. They can still do that. What stops them, right? I mean, all 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 that we tell ourselves is that both Mr. Naidu and Mr. Nitish Kumar will not be opportunistic and they will stand to uphold the traditions of Indian democracy. We'll have to wait and see.
Right. I know we're running out of time, but I'll just fit in one more question.
Sure.
You mentioned a cricket analogy. Even I'm a big cricket fan, big cricket
Sure.
follower.
Mhm.
So if, say, Mr. Nitish Kumar or Chandrababu Naidu throw a googly and
Mhm.
come a situation where they switch sides to the India Alliance will be really within touching distance of forming the government. So, do you think the India Alliance will aggressively push for that bid, open the communication lines with Mr. Kumar and Mr. Naidu, and ensure that they have these allies? Because if my numbers that I have here stand correctly, if both of them come as well with the India Alliance, they are still slightly short of 272. So do you see the
Mhm.
India Alliance proactively chasing that route where they go after Mr. Nitish Kumar, where they go after Mr. Naidu, and they say that, okay, we'll give you what you want, but come to our side, let's bring down this government and let's ensure an India Alliance government is in place. Do you think that googly or that scenario is something that will be possible?
Well, I think if you use a cricket analogy, it won't be a googly. I mean, they'll have to get the BJP run out, right? You call for a run, let BJP come halfway to the crease, and then you return back to your crease and get the umpire to say out BJP. So I think it probably will be a run out.
That's great.
Frankly, if you look at Mr. Chandrababu Naidu's manifesto, I mean, I can't even understand. Our Indian politics is frankly such a sham. But how are they in alliance is frankly beyond me. Mr. Modi's criticisms and reservations and on the minorities is completely in contrast to what Mr. Naidu has been promising to the minorities in Andhra Pradesh. So is that going to be a workable proposition? Time will tell. But remember, politics is all about, especially in our country, is about transactional convenience. It's about you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. So deals are struck, some public, some private. Now we have no idea what are the kind of understanding they will have to keep the alliance continuing. As far as Mr. Nitish Kumar is concerned, the lesser said the better. We have seen enough of the flip flops. Again, a very uneasy alliance. I'll be surprised if Mr. Nitish Kumar continues to be part of the alliance for only one reason. I mean, he's nearing the sunset of his political career. Uh, as a chief minister, they were planning to, in fact, dump him until the Lok Sabha results surprised the BJP. In the next year's elections, what's going to happen, nobody knows. But I really don't see how the BJP will allow Mr. Nitish Kumar to be a serious player. Normally, the BJP consumes its allies. I call it the great anaconda. It consumes his ally. It rides on their shoulder and then just kind of gobbles them up. Mr. Nitish Kumar, Shri Moni Akali Dal, Shiv Sena, they have all experienced that already. Even Anna DMK, PDP, everyone has gone through a pretty nasty experience with the BJP. I think the only hope for Mr. Nitish Kumar to have a great political, last few innings would be to try and play lower at the center. Will he get it with this current government? The answer is no. And he needs to look at his own legacy. To be frank, I think Nitish is very often unfairly uh, blamed for being a Palturam. Sometimes he's done it with a clear reason. He was against Mr. Modi and the 2002 riots in 2014. He resigned as a chief minister. He took steps, but the problem with Mr. Nitish Kumar has been that he's been confused within and a little half baked and not very sure of how to traverse the very treacherous terrain of Indian politics. So we'll have to wait and see what he does. But I'll be surprised if this government lasts too long. And especially, and this is how I would like to end today's kind of chat with you, which has been frankly very engaging, uh, is the fact that if the India Alliance, and I think that's what the India Alliance should focus on. If the India Alliance wins Maharashtra, which they should, if the Congress does well in Haryana, which frankly speaking, I'll be surprised if they don't. In Jharkhand, if the coalition returns to power, highly probable, and I think Arvind Kejriwal will be on a roll whenever he gets a bail in the elections in Delhi next year. I think this government will lose the moral legitimacy to be in power, and therefore the next three elections in October and the one in January will make us clear which way is this government headed. So don't be surprised if the allies pull out or the BJP at that point realizes that it can't really sustain itself with the usual Modi magic that they relied on for so long. That magic is over. The magic show is over. The people of India now want to, kind of say, uh, kind of basically say, hey, let's walk the talk.
Let's walk the talk. That's an interesting note, interesting comments to end this conversation on. Mr. Sanjay Jha, thank you so much for
Thank you.
taking out the time and speaking with me. It's been really lovely speaking with you and sort of getting to know your views. And we'll see how this Indian political league plays out going forward. So,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, Mr. Jha,
Thank
for
you.
speaking with me. To our audience, thank you so much for watching. And like I said, Mr. Sujit Nair, managing editor, he'll be back next week with his regular shows, with editorial, and with the 9 p.m. live. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, Shubham.